Hi guys, we're going to start with the first video of the Advanced Techniques series. We're going to start with something simple because, well, due to my experience with different courses and classes, I see that all over the world the skin tones and the general volumes of a face used to be one of the few topics that people have more problems with it. So we are going to paint one of my own busts that I have in my website. I want to remind you that the Patreons you will have a discount in the shop. So if you wanna give it a try with big volumes, well, this is a good chance to start trying with a big palette, with big brushes as well. This is a very basic palette. These reds are from Reaper. It will be one of our initial sponsors. They send us a very complete set of colors, the full range, so we are very grateful. Thank you very much for the sponsor. Well, the intention is to be trying all the colors. It's not the typical kind of pigment I used to use. Indeed, I used to paint with more vibrant and more intense pigments, but the key of this is that they release some pigments that are really matte, so it will help me also to control the palette and don't get very wild with the glossiness. We don't want a caramel, we want a figure. So we have 3 reds from Reaper. They are these. You can see them in the screen. The reality is that I don't need the 3 reds, but I will place them just in case I want variations. This will be my Roni ink. I like this color so much to make the mixtures more grayish. It's a very strong ink, and it has like a golden feeling that I like it a lot. And I will add also this yellow. It's a classic pot from Citadel, but you can use any yellow that looks like this one. In this case, this color, I like the density. It's not a heavy body paint, but it's quite thick for being a miniature brand paint. I will use also this blue from Roni. It's a fluorescent blue. Sometimes I use the fluorescent colors to get some of the properties of the color itself, the blue, but it's not as glossy and intense with the mixture like any other blue that is not fluorescent, because for whatever reason is a chemical thing. The fluorescent colors don't affect the mixture as much as the normal colors they do. This Sandsworth yellow from Citadel. As I've said, you can use any other yellow that reminds you to this tone. We have to insist that the name of the colors doesn't matter so much. Indeed, those are just references, and the same color in different brands could be named in a different way. So don't be very obsessed with the name. It's much better, at least that this is the first video, that you get used to the way I mix and the properties of the colors I say, and how these colors or how these tones, these tonalities works in a mixture. So you can use any other color that looks similar. We're going to use also titanium white from Golden Acrylic. It's a heavy body paint, very thick and very strong. In terms of value, is one of the brightest. As I'm going to apply the color in a very random way, which is one of the few ways that I used to start with the miniatures when I don't have a clear idea of what I want to do exactly, or I don't have any reference. You will see how easy it is to make a skin tone by mixing. I will place this paper to show you. The illumination of the figure is a very basic black from Citadel and white from Scale 75, I guess. 2 sprays that I have. I prefer the Citadel can because it's a little bit more plastic and it's more regular. But the white color from Scale 75 is a little bit more dusty, and sometimes it can leave you a little bit of grain. that if you control it, it could be useful for you to settle down the paints better. I prefer that the white color that is overlapping the black one, it could be a little bit more porous, and this could be a personal preference, but it's also helpful sometimes if it's not too thick. The illumination is a very neutral lateral zenithal source light. I don't know, I don't have it very clear on mind what I'm going to do, so I'm gonna like highlight, push up the paint a little bit more, the brightness. You see that I'm using a paste color, a heavy body color. You can extend it easily by placing the paste on top of the figure, and then extend it with the brush, with a humidify brush. Just with if the brush is humid, it's wet, it's pretty simple to extend the paint, and you see the difference between this super strong white and the previous one that now looks very grayish, right? I'm going to concentrate the lights in a certain rhythm, certain areas. I'm not going to do it all over the piece, but I will focus mainly on the light area, because it's a very it's an exercise that is like a freestyle, so I don't have any preconceptions about what I want to do. Because even though I have sculpted myself the figure, I still didn't paint it a couple of times, so I don't really know the volume so well. And also every time I sculpt, I used to design the figures to try to make something that you can vary easily and that you can make different concepts, different characters, and that's the reason why I don't have something on mind, because I have many things on mind. With this kind of figures, it's more difficult for me because it's easy to play and search for like new characters that I can have floating in my mind, but at the same time it's not as simple as some other figures to make like a proper main box art, because it's not one character that I have on mind instead of many characters that I have had on mind while I was sculpting the piece, you know. When I paint box art for any companies, that doesn't happen, because you know I have a clear idea of the character, and normally the character is predefined in the briefing stage, or maybe it's a character that we all know. You know, it's like if I'm painting, let's say Hulk from Night Models or Boromir from Night Models, I know who these characters are and what I want to do with the paint. I will accentuate. I will highlight more. I go more extreme in the value. You can see that I'm varying the dilution of the brush very often, and the way I move the brush is a cross-hatching technique. The reason why I dilute or change the dilution very often is because it's not the same pigment and the same color. This titanium white, thick, heavy body. It's not the same when you apply it directly or you spread it a little bit, or when you actually dilute the color. It looks very different, and the level of the value is measured in a different way. The clue is that I can achieve like an initial grisaille. You know, it's not a sketch. It's not a sketch style. It's just a grisaille. It's a technique, a medieval technique that wants to highlight the volumes just with a grayscale, basically. What I'm doing is like do all at once, only in one stage, in one step. So I avoid to place too much paint on it. A main thing about this like previous sketch with grayscale, an important thing is it's not only to give more like intensity to the illumination and to make more contrast with the shadow. Instead of it helps you to understand the piece. You know, it helps you to softly caress. It's like when you are with your new couple, you know, your girlfriend or your boyfriend, and the first stage is to get to know this body. You know, you don't go straight forward. You start like touching or understanding the volumes first to see how it works. And while I'm doing this, it helps me also to think about what will be the future steps I will take. It's one of the main fundamentals of the sketching. You know, it helps you to warm up the hand and the brain at once. And while you're doing that, you're thinking in the next stages. You know, it's something very useful for that. It's one of the main things about sketching, even if it's sculpting, drawing, painting, whatever. Normally I used to do this with several pieces at once, so that saved time for me. But now this could be like an initial stage. This is a sketch where you can check how it will be. I'm going to do the mixtures directly in the palette. You will see how I develop them, and you will see how I apply those mixtures in this grisaille sketch. It's a very basic technique of sketching. Indeed, I will do probably a very specific video about this. It's a very silly technique. It's not something complex. It's a good way to decide what will be the kind of focus and the level of contrast you're going to give to the piece. And now we're going to cover it with a certain like random tonalities, and you will see that it will achieve a very organic feeling, because this is not the typical base color, first highlight, second highlight, and then shadows. This will be more organic. Makes sense if you follow the full process, you will see that it makes sense. At the beginning, I used to start mixing different colors and different skin tones to achieve a more natural looking, because at the end it's like flesh. Flesh doesn't have a main part that is a main color and then highlights and shadows. This is a very simplistic simplification. These are the lies that during many years magazines, processes, companies has told you, that the face is a 3-stage process, and that's not right. It's much more complex than this. The skin at the end is full of tonalities, veins, grains, blisters, scars. So this is my way to create this randomness from the very beginning. That will be just a way to have a settled ground where I can start growing up the mixtures. Here we have the yellow. The yellow is almost dry already because it's summer, and well, we're going to change the background of the palette, because the absorbent material it could be confusing. I recommend you, to all the students, all the viewers, that you can follow this at your home, and you will see how easy it is to get many different skin tones. It's something super simple that everybody can do if you understand how the colors react between themselves. So, and you don't have to mix and to achieve the exact same color as I'm doing, because at the end, if it looks like a skin tone, it looks like a skin tone. And then also, skin tone is not only one tone, instead of the combination of many layers of different tones, of different things that are going on, and that this is what makes us look alive, that we are not one color, we are many different tonalities. However, at the end, the perception is more regular somehow, but inside of this regularity, we find a lot of irregularity. The result of mixing will be always better and more organic and more positive than taking a pre-made color that has been done with a chemistry. That will be much more natural and more controllable, because at the end you will be the one who decide how much amount of each color you will have in the mixture. So at the end, it's better always to be in charge of the mixtures, instead of depending on one specific color from any range. As you see, I have created very quickly already 3 skin tones. That's pretty simple. You will see that I will be constantly changing the tones of the skin tones, and this will give me much more variation. The colors will be merging between themselves, somehow interacting between themselves. So at the end, we will perceive a skin tone, but it will be made out of many different tones. The dilution is a very high dilution. You can see in the screen. It's almost like a glazing, but it's not a glaze. It's something in between. You can see that it respects the drawing, right? So it's a very diluted mixture. We are applying the colors all over the figure, and that's a good way to continue sketching. The concept of sketching, it's kept during almost the full process. Every time I want to add something, I place it straight away, directly. So I'm sketching the effect, and then I refine. I will use Prussian Blue by W. Roney. I'm showing you just the name of the colors, because maybe they can be useful for you. But I suggest you to recognize or to try to dig and search what are the properties of these colors instead of the name, because the name is not worth it. You know, you don't have to be searching for this specific tone. Instead of the properties that I have taken from this color to create this tone. You understand what I mean? It's like this is a very dark, deep, and cold blue. It's very intense because it's an ink. It's a very high, vibrant pigment. And as you see, it helps me to decrease the light of the skin tone. I get something more grayish and something darker. And as you see, I apply it without being cared too much. So this is also a different way than the traditional miniature painting that looks to be obsessed by the precision of the brushstroke, while, well, you will see the final result, and you don't need to be so precise. You just need to be confident, you know, and by applying the colors, all the different tones will interact between themselves, and it's not that one color will start here and stop there. Instead of all of them will start creating like a mutual feeling, you know, of a skin tone. All the colors will be interacting between themselves, and as you see, the mixing is still very humid, so I can continue moving the tones and placing them in a more proper way, because as you see, sometimes I pick one color that is darker than the other one, so that you have time, you know, by using this kind of approachings to the miniature painting, you have time to correct. Indeed, you could put this miniature now into a glass of water and the color will leave, you know, so it's not a big problem. You may think that this is a chaos, but if you start understanding with me, and for this is the Patreon, you know, to start teaching you deeper content, right, than the normal one. If I start explaining all the properties of the colors and why they interact between themselves in which way, you will be starting to understand how I do the mixtures and why I'm doing these mixtures. So then you will be able to do your own mixtures as well. So now you see that I have done some kind of very dark green gray. It's like a military gray or a military dark green, something like this. If I really need this green, this dark green, and I want to make a specific area more grayish, I can apply in an area where there is more red, and it will turn it instantly more grayish because they are complementary colors. They work like this. But I can change at any moment. You see, I apply red and then I gain again some lively feeling, you know. And now it's not that it's red, or green. Instead of something completely mixed. Sorry. And I know it looks like a complex exercise, but I propose you this from the very beginning, because if you start controlling this and if you start losing your fears, you will feel so much bravery and so much freedom in your painting that you will never regret about that. This, I mean, hundreds of students all over the world can assure you that this is something that works. Obviously, you need to go deeper into the analyze and study of the colors, and especially by practicing, but I promise you that this works. And see the difference between working like this, how much fun and enjoyable and faster is this, rather than just applying flat colors from one pot and then moving to the next pot and then moving to the next pot like a robot, you know. Now we're playing and discovering the miniature by placing the brush and, you know, caressing the miniature and covering it, and you see that the flesh color is starting to appear, you know. And it's not one color. You can see some parts that are more reddish, some parts that are more yellowish, and the dark area, it's a little bit more greenish, some parts are more bluish. You see that I'm taking the brush from far, you know, I'm holding the brush not in a traditional way, not close to the tip, instead of the back part of the brush, because this helped me to dance with the brush more free, you know, and to achieve more number of brush strokes, you know. So this is also something that oil painters used to do in large canvases as well, to achieve more brush strokes. As you see, the colors are still humid, but they're starting to merge, and the flesh tones start to appear, and there are greens, purples, oranges, some yellowish part, reddish. It's a very fast way to start, and it's easy to correct because at the end, because the paint job was, the painting was under a lot of dilution, there is not a problem if you fail. I mean, you know, like you can correct at any moment. Any flat color from any miniature brand company of paints that produce thin pigment that has high coverage will cover this in case that you want to go back to the traditional way. So let's give it a try, guys.